Apologies. But I had already departed when I went to use the bathroom at the rest stop. During that time, I received a phone call from Walter, and it puzzled me why he would call at such an unusual moment. When I answered, I was greeted by the sound of Walter and his in-laws laughing loudly. Confused, I asked what was happening. Walter's response was shocking. He cheerfully told me they had decided to have a fun family outing without me, suggesting I might as well go back home and do some cleaning. I had been eagerly anticipating this trip, especially since it had been a while since our last adventure. Despite my hesitations about going on a trip with his family, I was looking forward to staying at a luxurious inn. The idea that he would leave me by myself at a rest stop was incredibly upsetting. Standing alone in the restroom, I felt a mix of anger and betrayal shaking through me. Yet, I managed to respond calmly, saying, okay, even though inside, I felt this was unforgivable. Today was particularly special. It was both our wedding anniversary and my birthday. We had planned this trip to celebrate these occasions. My name is Cheryl Francis, a 35-year-old who stays at home, living a quiet life with my husband, Walter. Today marks 2 years since we got married, on my birthday. Walter has always been a romantic at heart, making a big deal out of anniversaries and birthdays, a tradition stemming from his childhood where his birthdays were celebrated with extravagant dinners, trips overseas, or even cruises. It seems those grand celebrations left a lasting impression on him, driving him to mark special occasions with similar enthusiasm. Walter comes from a wealthy family. His father is the CEO of Crown Securities, and his mother enjoys the luxuries that come with their status. Walter, being the future head of the company, sometimes appears a bit spoiled. However, I chose to marry him because I felt cherished by him. We met through a matchmaking service, a place where men of Walter's financial standing were highly sought after. I almost didn't approach him, fearing rejection, but it turned out I was exactly his type. Our connection wasn't based on financial interests. Marrying for love was a dream come true for me. Starting our married life, we moved into a modest 3-bedroom apartment in the city. Walter had wanted a larger place, but I felt a smaller apartment was more fitting for just the two of us, especially since we could always move later. Despite the expensive city rent of $2,500, I was concerned about the financial burden. Walter reassured me, saying his father would take care of it. His reliance on his family's wealth for financial support bothered me. But when his salary unexpectedly increased by $700, I was thankful for the relief it brought. Walter's casual mention of having dinner with his parents as if it were an ordinary family gathering caught me off guard. I hadn't expected our life together to involve him maintaining such a causal relationship with his family, almost as if our marriage hadn't changed his routines. This unexpected turn of events, being left at a rest stop on such a significant day, made me realize the complexities and challenges of blending our lives together, especially with the shadow of his family's wealth and traditions looming over us. As he prepared to leave, he mentioned casually that he was heading out for dinner since it was Friday. This was news to me. Walter usually informed me about his plans, especially when they involved dining with his in-laws. As his spouse, I expected to be included, not out of desire for a free meal, but to foster a good relationship with his family. This unexpected plan left me puzzled and worried about the dynamics of our marriage, marking a turning point where I began to sense something was amiss. Following that dinner, Walter's visits to his parents' house became more frequent, sitting reasons like a cousin's birthday or his mother needing him. Being new to mariage, I initially accepted these explanations as normal. However, my perspective shifted after a conversation with a friend who had been married longer. She was shocked to hear how often Walter went home without me, questioning if this was typical behavior. Her surprise made me realize that my acceptance of Walter's actions might not be as normal as I thought, leaving me feeling embarrassed and questioning. My friend suggested that Walter's behavior was immature, especially for someone his age and in his position. This reflection hit home, making me regret not seeing this side of him before we got married. Returning home from dinner with these thoughts heavy on my mind, I was greeted by my mother-in-law in our living room, with Walter nowhere in sight. She mentioned that their dinner plans were canceled and seemed surprised I wasn't aware, pointing out a message from Walter I had missed due to my commute. Her next comments were a sharp jab at my upbringing, attributing my supposed oversight to being raised in a single-parent household. This criticism deeply hurt, as my mother had worked tirelessly to provide for me after my father's passing. I defended my situation, pointing out that my upbringing had nothing to do with missing a message. Yet, she brushed aside my response and criticized the size of our home, suggesting it was too small. In that moment, The differences in our backgrounds and values became starkly apparent, adding another layer of complexity to my marriage with Walter and our interactions with his family. Feeling sympathy for Walter due to our cramped living situation became a recurrent theme, especially when my interactions with my in-laws, who often came across as patronizing due to their affluent background, continued to strain me. Their visits, which increased in frequency and were always unannounced, usually ended with critiques about the state of our home or its size. On several occasions, they even suggested, with a hint of sarcasm, that we should consider moving into their larger home. I was adamantly against this idea and rejected their offers each time. These conversations were always in Walter's absence, leaving him unaware of their demeaning comments. When I brought it up with him, his indifference and suggestion that living with his parents might not be such a bad idea left me feeling isolated in my frustrations. As our first wedding anniversary approached, coinciding with my birthday, Walter, slightly inebriated from an evening out, enthusiastically proposed celebrating in a grand manner, surpassing the previous year's celebration. He mentioned a family trip involving not just us, but his extended family to a luxury resort in Desert Hot Springs. The concept of a family trip for what was supposed to be a personal celebration of us puzzled me. Despite my reservations and the oddity of including his family in our personal celebrations, Walter's excitement and the mention of Desert Hot Springs did spark some curiosity. Though initially skeptical about spending our special occasions surrounded by his family, Walter's perspective that it was a rare opportunity for a vacation made me reconsider. Gradually, the idea began to appeal to me, and I found myself looking forward to the trip, determined not to let any potential negative comments from my in-laws dampen my spirits. Finally, the day of departure arrived. We met up with his family, who were already gathered and ready to leave. Upon our arrival, my mother-in-law quickly made a remark about our timing, hinting at the importance of the day. Despite her usual tendency to make snide comments, there was a recognition of the day's significance. It seemed that despite the challenges and the unconventional setup of celebrating with his entire family, there was an underlying acknowledgement of the day's personal importance to us. This acknowledgement made me feel a bit more at ease, ready to embrace the trip and the celebrations, hoping to find joy in the unique way we were marking our anniversary and my birthday. Realizing I was supposed to be the focal point of the day softened the sting of my mother-in-law's sharp comments. "I apologize, we were held up by traffic," I offered, knowing full well that such excuses wouldn't cut it with them. The urgency to depart was palpable, with reminders of our booking at the luxury resort adding pressure. Despite their complaints about our delay, I could tolerate it. After all, their critical remarks had been a constant backdrop throughout the year. Walter's cousin, who was noticeably younger and had a rather unsettling gaze, made me question if this trait of being judgmental ran in the family. His demeaning comment about me not meeting his expectations was something I chose to ignore, deciding that showing grace was the better response. The anticipation for the resort, mentioned to be costing $1,100 per person, added a layer of shock and curiosity to my thoughts. Once we were on our way to Desert Hot Springs, a sense of adventure mixed with apprehension settled over me. The journey was supposed to take about 5 hours, and we planned a brief stop along the way. My mother-in-law's dismissive gesture as I headed to the restroom made me feel even more isolated. Finding a moment of peace in the restroom, I braced myself for the rest of the trip, hoping for smooth sailing. However, a call from Walter, filled with laughter from him and my mother-in-law, shattered that hope. They informed me, much to my disbelief, that they had left without me, suggesting I return home to tend to household chores as the trip was intended only for the Francis family. This betrayal, especially on our wedding anniversary and my birthday, left me reeling with shock and hurt. After composing myself, I reached out for help, contacting someone who reacted with surprise and sympathy to my situation. They promised to come to my aid, and about an hour later, my uncle arrived to rescue me. Apologizing for the inconvenience, I was grateful for his understanding and support during such an unexpected and distressing turn of events. This act of kindness was a silver lining in an otherwise dark cloud, providing me with a sense of relief and the strength to face what had just happened. It was a truly unfortunate turn of events, leading us to Desert Hot Springs, where they were staying at a grand and luxurious inn, known for its exclusivity and high cost of $100 per night. My uncle, upon understanding the gravity of the situation, agreed to drive me there, offering a supportive shoulder in a time of need. Upon our arrival, the grandeur of the inn was unmistakable, with its majestic gate welcoming us. At the reception, we were informed that dinner was to start at 7 p.m. To my surprise, the person who greeted us was none other than my mother, donning an elegant outfit and a warm yet somewhat formal smile. This inn, a cornerstone of my mother's family legacy, had been her place of work ever since she became a single parent. To me, this place was more than just an inn. It was a piece of home. I had called my mother from the rest stop earlier, which led to the revelation that the Crown Securities Group had a reservation. Never had I imagined that Walter's family's search for luxury would bring them to our doorstep, unbeknownst to them about its connection to my family. The situation was ironic and demanded action. My mother and I planned for me to confront them during dinner, a moment I prepared for with a mix of anticipation and determination. As the in-laws gathered for dinner, I stayed hidden, overhearing their conversation filled with cruise remarks and oblivious boasting about their luxurious lifestyle and aspirations. Their talk even ventured into dismissive comments about me, highlighting their relief at my absence and making derogatory remarks about my background. The tension in the room peaked when my mother, with all her grace and professionalism, served them, unbeknownst to them who she was. The family's inappropriate comments continued until my mother, seizing the perfect moment, entered with a dessert plate, announcing it was in honor of my birthday and wedding anniversary. She inquired about my seating, causing a wave of confusion and discomfort among the family as they realized the oversight of not having me there. This moment was pivotal, not just in exposing the family's true colors, but in showcasing the strength and dignity of my mother and me. It was a confrontation not sought through direct conflict, but through the subtle reveal of our roles in their supposed sanctuary of luxury, turning the tables and highlighting the importance of respect and family ties. As the innkeeper, my mother played along with the unfolding drama, revealing to the shocked in-laws that she was well aware of the special occasion. The room fell into an awkward silence when she mentioned my name, Cheryl Francis, as her daughter, prompting a collective gasp of disbelief from Walter and his family. Seizing the moment, I stepped out from the adjacent room to stand beside my mother, declaring her role in my life and our connection to the inn. Walter, caught off guard, struggled to comprehend the situation, especially since he had never met my mother due to various excuses and a certain reluctance on his and his parents' part. Despite this, I had always hoped for their acceptance, even if it was through unconventional means like showing my mother a photo of Walter. The earlier disparaging remarks about single parents and the judgment passed on my family background were brought to light. Walter and his family, faced with the reality of their prejudice and disrespect, were taken aback by my confrontation. I challenged Walter on his behavior and allegiance, questioning why he, as my husband, would side with his parents in belittling me. My outburst highlighted the deep-seated issues within our relationship, emphasizing my willingness to distance myself from the Francis family if their mistreatment persisted. The in-laws' response, hinting at a bleak future for me without their support, was met with my unwavering resolve. In this moment of truth, with my mother by my side, I stood firm, challenging the misconceptions and disrespect that had been directed at us. It was a turning point, asserting my independence and questioning the foundation of our marriage in the face of Walter and his family's apparent disregard for our dignity and worth. In a moment of clarity and defiance, I revealed to Walter and his family that I was expecting a child. This news, which I had discovered just last week and had only shared with my mother, took everyone by surprise. Walter's ignorance of the situation and his family's sudden shift in demeanor upon hearing the news highlighted their opportunistic nature. They tried to amend the situation, suggesting that my pregnancy somehow changed the dynamics of our relationship. However, their abrupt change of attitude only solidified my resolve. Fed up with their inconsistency and lack of genuine care, I declared my intention to end the marriage through legal means. I expressed my determination to live a fulfilling life with my child and my mother, away from the negativity and fickleness of Walter and his family. My departure from the room, marked by the echoing slam of the door, symbolized the end of my tolerance for their behavior. Despite their attempts to reconcile, including inundating me with calls and a letter from Walter expressing regret and a plea for reconciliation, I remained steadfast in my decision. The thought of Walter placing his parents' wishes above our child's well-being, as he had done with me, was unacceptable. I was resolute in my decision not to subject my child to such an environment. With a future now unfettered by the constraints of a disingenuous relationship, I turned my focus to the well-being of my unborn child and the prospects of joining my mother in running the inn. The prospect of becoming the next innkeeper, though daunting, filled me with a sense of purpose. I planned to immerse myself in the business once my child was old enough for daycare, determined to provide a stable and loving home, far removed from the pretense and manipulation of the past. This path I chose was not just for me, but for the future of my child. Together with my mother, we would forge a new legacy, one rooted in genuine care and hard work, away from the shadows of conditional affections and empty promises.